we're well north of 5 million names when you add up all the states that we've sued and settled with, or states that we've warned and they've gone and done voter roll cleanups as a result. It's really tremendous. Hey everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here. Breaking news, we now can confirm that over 5 million dirty names have been removed from the voter rolls across the country in several states as a result of Judicial Watch's litigation, our lawsuits, and our legal action. The new numbers are an uptick, a significant uptick from the prior number of 4 million names. We have reports in from Kentucky. New York City is now removed up to 1 million names from the rolls, thanks to your Judicial Watch heavy lifting in court, specifically a settlement of a federal lawsuit we filed. We issued this news this week because we received 2 new reports from Kentucky and New York City, places we had sued. In Kentucky, we had a consent decree that required them to clean up the rolls because they weren't cleaning up the rolls as federal law requires. New York City, I don't think they had cleaned up the rolls at all for a period of time until we sued, and they came back and said, we're going to clean them up. And over the course of the last few years or so, and most recently, they added another 500,000 names to the mix, bringing the total to well over 1 million, practically speaking. The new numbers come in as a result of Judicial Watch's litigation under a law called the National Voter Registration Act, and that law is typically been known as the Motor Voter Bill, but it also which requires states to make registration available to people at places where public benefits are given, generally speaking. And Republicans didn't like the idea of that, because, and many conservatives, because what would happen is that it would lead potentially to multiple registrations for an individual and double registrations all across the land. And one of the provisions of the law was, as a result, supposedly to take care of that issue, was to require the states to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. Well, you can guess how that worked out. The left came in and just wanted to register everybody and their mother and sued everyone to make sure that was happening. Zero interest, practically speaking, in making sure the states were cleaning up the rolls until Judicial Watch came to town, and started enforcing it through federal lawsuits representing ourselves and others. We had litigation in Ohio and Indiana to begin back in, it's now at least 13, 14 years ago. And it's been litigation, lawsuit after lawsuit across the country to clean up the rolls. And it's been successful. Sometimes even sending a warning letter is enough to get a jurisdiction or a state to clean up the rolls. For instance, in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, we had been investigating Pennsylvania for some time and have had success in cleaning the rolls up there. Allegheny came back to us and said, oh, well, thanks for your letter. We removed 69,000 names from the rolls. So all of those numbers totaled 4 million or so as of essentially just a few months ago, and included 1.2 million names being removed from the rolls in LA County after we sued and settled out there. We subsequently had to file another lawsuit, which is ongoing, because of the rest of the state. It continues to be a mess. So there are millions of names that still need to be removed. But it's a remarkable achievement for Judicial Watch and for you, dear voter and dear citizen, because having more accurate lists means that you have less opportunities for voter fraud. Cleaner elections will result from having cleaner voting rolls. Dirty voting rolls make it more likely that the elections will be dirtier, because it's just necessarily allows, again, gives you more opportunities for voter fraud, because you have names on the list who aren't supposed to be there, and obviously that's a temptation for someone to vote in their place. I mean, that's why the law is in place. Otherwise, why have voter roll cleanups at all if it was just a maintenance issue? It's a voter fraud issue. It's a reassurance for the American people that the rolls are clean and you don't have ghost names on the rolls or zombie names on the rolls of people who died or moved away or otherwise become ineligible. So in the latest group of numbers, we got reports that in some, Kentucky, under this consent decree, has reported that they've removed 735,000 ineligible voter registrations since 2019 as part of this consent decree they entered into with Judicial Watch. And as part of a 2022 settlement with Judicial Watch, New York City alone has removed 918,139, basically a million, because it's got to be a million for a variety of reasons, but the actual number that I'll go with for the purposes of the release is 918,000. So they removed 918,000 ineligible names from its rolls. They had removed just in between March 2023 and 2025, 477,000, and that's in addition to, prior to that, because of the initial settlement, 441,000 names. So the total is well over 900,000, so 1 million names practically speaking. And so we're well north of 5 million names when you add up all the states that we've sued and settled with, or states that we've warned and they've gone and done voter roll cleanups as a result. It's really tremendous. And this comes on top of Judicial Watch's, it's not like we're giving up. So we've got ongoing litigation to clean up the rolls in Illinois, which are a mess, Oregon, which I think are some of the worst voting rolls in the country, as best I recall, and in California. And then there's going to be a new raft of numbers that come out later this year, and so we'll be looking at those very carefully to see if there are other opportunities or other needs to clean up the rolls in other states. The last big study as it relates to voter rolls, and it goes back several years, so the numbers may be outdated, but it was well over 20 million plus extra names on the rolls that shouldn't be there. So there's a lot more work to be done. And thankfully, the Trump administration has expressed interest through the president's executive order to clean up the rolls and take steps to clean up the rolls. As I said, it's been Judicial Watch who's been in court suing at the federal level. There have been some other groups, and I think the RNC filed a few lawsuits following Judicial Watch's lead recently. But what a remarkable number! Just 5 million names, and isn't it outrageous? Isn't it outrageous those names would still be there but for Judicial Watch? Where's the government? Where are the state election officials? That the only way these names get cleaned up when we literally go to federal court or do our own independent analysis, and it's not like we're making up numbers, we're relying on their data to say, hey, you're not cleaning up the rolls. All they have to do? This is all they have to do under the current application of the law as interpreted and applied by the courts and specifically the Supreme Court. So if you don't show up, let's say you didn't vote in 2024, the state or the locality is supposed to send you a postcard. Hey, you didn't vote. Are you still there? Are you still at this address? Are you still eligible? And if you don't respond to that postcard or otherwise vote in the next two general elections at the federal level, so let's say it's 2024, and if you don't vote in 2024, you get the postcard, you ignore the postcard, and then you don't vote in 2026 at the congressional level, the congressional elections, and then you don't vote in 2028 again at the next presidential congressional election federal cycle, they're supposed to remove your names from the rolls. And the fact they're not doing that, so it's like 5 years plus, practically speaking, sometimes, before your names get removed. And they don't even want to do that basic work. And the fact that we have to go to court to get it done is just another indication of, frankly, the importance of Judicial Watch. Because if we didn't do it, it'd be a mess. And I'm convinced that the millions of names that have been removed and our efforts to kind of police the issue, not only on this, but other issues related to election integrity, helped stop the steal in 2024. And it's going to help stop potential steals in the future. And it's because we're not sitting on our laurels. We continue to do the heavy lifting in court, as I said, with new lawsuits, new investigations, and of course we're monitoring what the states are doing in places where we've already been, like in Colorado, North Carolina, as I said, Pennsylvania, etc. And of course, you as a citizen can ask questions about what your local election and state election officials are doing to clean up the rolls. You literally can ask the questions under federal law, Section 8I. You can go look it up. And this is on top of Judicial Watch's other work in support of voter ID, in support of ensuring that the federal requirement that there's an election day be upheld. As I said before, we have an election day, not an election week. And we obtained a massive series of rulings in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals affirming that. Counting ballots that arrive after Election Day is unlawful. That's what the Circuit Court ruled. We've got lawsuits in Illinois where they count ballots for up to 14 days after Election Day. And we got lawsuits in California, or a lawsuit in California, where they count ballots for up to 7 days after Election Day. And that post-election day counting of illicit ballots, in my view, or as we allege, resulted in Republicans losing 2 seats in the Congress. They were winning on Election Day, and those seats were lost to Democrats as a result of post-election day counting of ballots that arrived after Election Day. I mean, it's not like the ballots were sitting in the corner and they missed them and they got in there by election. No. That'd be suspicious, but that wasn't happening. These are ballots that are arriving after Election Day. And President Trump issued this executive order last week, as I highlighted for you in last week's update, where he affirmed that the Justice Department is going to enforce this law because you have 18, 19 states that count ballots that arrive after Election Day. And what has happened since then, because he had not only in that executive order an affirmation of that, an effort to help clean up the rolls and an affirmation of that law, but also taking key steps to ensure that non-citizens aren't registering to vote and voting. And what did the left do? The Democratic Party and their fronts sued to stop Trump from trying to secure our elections from non-citizen voting, because right now there's no enforcement mechanism, no check on someone who says they're a citizen when they register to vote. Certainly at the federal level, there's no check in place. All you have to do is attest that you're a citizen and are eligible, and there's no check on that. And Americans want that check in place. They support voter ID. Well north of 80% of Americans support voter ID. Well north of 80% of Americans support ensuring and taking steps that citizens or non-citizens or voters have to prove their citizenship or show evidence of citizenship in order to register to vote and vote. In my view, any opposition to voter ID, any opposition to cleaning up the rolls, any opposition to the absurdity of counting ballots that show up after Election Day, I mean, that's people who support that, generally speaking, for political purpose, they want to be able to steal elections when necessary, and those techniques make it easier to steal elections. Heck, in these cases where I'm talking about, where we're suing in Mississippi, the Fifth Circuit, and Illinois on cleaning up or stopping the counting of ballots that arrive after Election Day, the Biden administration filed statements to the court saying Judicial Watch should lose, that anyone should be able to count ballots seemingly forever after Election Day, as long as they get there. Under the logic, what would be the deadline other than Election Day? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.